Hi everyone, so this is just to offer you guys a quick review on how to do some of the stuff that we covered in our first class. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you kind of an alternate way to create a web page, to sort of save a web page through Aptana. Some of you who are using Windows operating systems, the sort of process of creating a project and then and then making a web page was being a little bit problematic. So there's another way to do it that I'll show you right now, so you have it for reference. And then we'll also look at adding and updating CSS styles, looking at some of our CSS examples that you might use for your first programming assignment, and then finally the process of uploading it to our CUIT web space. So you can see I've got Aptana just starting up here. I've got it pointing to the data visualization folder that I created, and that's where I'm going to keep all my work. So I'm just going to choose that as the default. It'll take a minute for this to start up here. And then what we're going to do is rather than going to the project, so this is already open, but I'm gonna do this from scratch. What I'm going to do is, let me actually shift this window slightly. Sorry about that. So hopefully you can see the nav bar up here. So I'm going to go to File, New from Template. So I'm going straight to the process of creating an HTML file here. And I'm going to just close this one. Okay, so what we can see is I'm going to delete this folder. Okay, so I now have created this new web page, right? And we recognize, we talked about how it has a head tag and a body tag. And so I'm going to say, okay, this is my first web page. And here's the title. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save this. And it's going to say, do I want to save it to a local file system or a project? I'm going to choose local file system. And this is because I'm later going to convert it to a project. But this is, again, just another way to do it. So I'm going to create a new folder and call it first web page, basically the same as the other one. Oops, it looks like this got created in the wrong place. I want to have it in here. Never mind, let's do that. Okay. First web page. Okay, so I'm creating that. Good, that's where I want it. And now I'm going to save this file. And when I save this file, I have to specify the .html extension. This is going to happen a lot with Aptana, where we have to actually explicitly state the file extension that we want it to use. So I'm going to say first web page.html. Okay, so right now that's just a folder that I've created, sort of a regular folder. And if I go to local file system here, what it's going to do is it's going to open up my hard drive the way that, it's going to sort of show my hard drive and all the parts of my Mac that I'm used to seeing, or my computer that I'm used to seeing. So if I go straight to the desktop, I can see my data visualization folder, and then I see this new folder that I've created, first web page. So what I can do now is, rather than having to open up all these folders all the time, I can right-click and choose Promote to Project. And this is where it's going to say, right, what kind of project is this? So this is, again, the inverse of what we did the first time in class, but this is also a good way to do it. I'm going to choose Finish, and then you see it's created this folder down here, so I can now collapse this, and lo and behold, there's first web page in my folder. So now we get to the part where, if you remember in class, we created some divs, right? Sample div 1. Sample div 2, and we started talking about classes. And so again, the tag that we are looking at when we want to create classes right in our HTML document, in not too long we'll actually move these out of our HTML document. We'll move them into a separate cascading style sheet document, which is handy because really we do want to keep separate our structure, our content, and our styling, and so we don't want to have our styles all mucked up in our HTML document. For now, since we're playing around, we're just going to create a class right in here. So remember that starting with dot means this is a class in CSS, and I'm going to call it example class, and then I open curly braces, and this is where I can start to play around, right? I can actually use a limited number of color names. Again, remember, color applies to the font. I'm going to say padding is 3 pixels. spaces are not, don't leave a space after the colon. I'm going to say margin is also 3 pixels. And display. And, so this happens, for example, let's say I had this, right? And it's just a typo, and I put inline, and display inline, float, left, we looked at what this did, and display, float, position. So the thing that I want to point out here, this actually relates to our typography discussion, right? Is we notice that this is white. Okay, that is a clue. That is a visual cue that something's not quite right, because if we see all of the properties that are recognized CSS properties are this kind of amber color, right? So when things are white, what it means is the web page thinks that this is text. This page thinks that it is text, this like literal text, like here is the title, first web page, right? We don't want that inside a CSS class. So this is a way to sort of note that, oh, there's probably something wrong here, right? And you can see that when I correct the spelling and display, it turns amber. So, our discussion of typography is not simply for, it's for all readers, including ourselves as readers of code, to note things like white text means string. If you see white text in a place where the color white means text. If you're in a place where what you're trying to do is actually write code, then you don't want it to be white. So if you see white in one of those areas, that's a signal that something's not quite correct. Okay, so I've done this, and now if we recall, in order to have this apply to my div, or divs, right, I can apply it to as many divs as I like. And you can see mine doesn't pop up, but that's fine. It's actually kind of good practice to not have it do that. Now I should be able to see if I go look at this web page with, with a web browser, I should be able to see, yes, here we are. Actually, the easiest way for me is going to be to actually open this data viz folder. Where is it? There we are. I'm going to open my data viz folder. I'm going to look in here, and I'm just going to open that up with Firefox, and there we are. Right? Looks about as I expected. Now the other thing that I want to do is I want to add some comments here, and I'm going to say, sorry. So again, our format for comments is caret, exclamation point, dash, dash, and to close that comment, right? It's not exactly the same. It's dash, dash, and the close caret. And I'm going to say, I am using the display, color, margin, and padding properties. Now for your assignment, what we've asked you to do is actually look at this web page, look at your web page in multiple browsers, and just essentially make notes somewhere in this HTML file, doesn't really matter where, this, above your divs is as good a place as any, and say whether it looks the same across all browsers. And that's because depending on the properties, the CSS properties you choose, it may or may not look the same. And so we just want to have a note of that. So again, I'm going to save this. Because this is a comment, it's not going to cause a visible difference in my web page, which is great. And that's about it. And now I'm ready to upload it. And so in order to do that, I'm going to come back to FileZilla here. Where is FileZilla? Come to me, FileZilla. Okay, there we are. So booting up FileZilla, and I have a couple of options for how I can do this. If I have my data viz folder open, I can, so the first thing I need to do is just, connect to my connect server. So I've saved that connection. It's just, it's a one-click process, but I have to actually connect to it. And now I can say, here's my data viz 14 folder. This thing is feeling a little wonky here. And I can actually just drag and drop right out of my folder into here. And I can see it, you see there's a little bit of activity that goes by here, sort of showing its process that it's, I'm uploading. And now the trick is that if I want to actually check that this is on the internet properly, I have to make sure that the URL that I go to look for it is exactly the same, right? And so I'm actually going to do this so I can keep an eye on the name of my folder. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say columbia.edu tilde my username. Okay, and then the name of the folder I can see. So public HTML is what it will go to if I just put my username. So I need to go to a folder inside of that called DataViz14. You can see it's remembered it for me. And then I want to go to first web page. Notice I almost had a lowercase w. That wouldn't have worked. It's very, very picky. Like I said, the pickiest copy editors in the world. And there we go. Right, and so now I have my web page uploaded. So the thing that you all need to submit is you need to submit this URL. Make sure that it works, right? So put it in the browser, make sure you can see it, and then copy that into your assignment for Sunday afternoon, which we have scheduled to be the deadline to be before the Super Bowl starts. So please make sure to get this assignment completed before, if you're watching the big game, before you watch the big game. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us. Please email early. We will not be on hand to answer questions at 4:59 or probably even like 2:59. So give us some, please start this tomorrow. Take a look at it. And you will lose credit if it comes in after 5 p.m., even a minute after 5 p.m. This is a good place to practice deadlines. So don't leave it to the last minute. Give it a shot tomorrow. If you have questions, send us an email, and we look forward to seeing your work next week.